the phrase guns blazing is probably not the appropriate one to use here. Go into an interview all out. Give it your all, because you might never know. You might supplant that person who they have as a shoe-in, but at the same time, realizing that, you know what, the deck may be actually stacked against you is probably incredibly healthy for a lot of people when they look at, well, I really wanted to work at that company, but they just never got back to me. And it's probably because they found the person and had them sitting down in marketing or wherever it might be, and just needed to go through a process for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And there are laws and there are rules that, as well as company policies that require that they follow that process, that full recruiting, selection, and hiring process. And you may be a part of the process, but you weren't the one that they had in mind from the very beginning. And again, that doesn't mean that you don't apply. This is not to discourage applying, because you never know. And that's obviously not the case every time, but you're not going to be given majority of the time unless you had someone like I did. I was very grateful for this situation of someone telling me, just so you know, they already had someone in mind. That happens way more often than we realize. And you're not going to always know that that's the scenario or the case, but having awareness that that can happen can help to reduce the thought that it's all because of you, or because you didn't show up well enough to the interview, or you didn't qualify. Maybe you did, but they might have already had somebody in mind.
Right. You brought your A game, but somebody already won the game.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter how many points you score. The goal line's been crossed. Got it.
Well said.
Okay. Ariel, and I think a lot of folks may have on their mind right now that, yeah, we're going to reprogram the words. That kind of sounds a little bit like people coming to me and giving me kind of platitudes like, hey, you need to have an attitude of gratitude. And, oh, have you read Rhonda Byrne's The Secret? And think positive thoughts, and it's going to help shield you from that. My experience in my introduction to these concepts, I found them to kind of be like, oh, yeah, I should do that. And that's revolutionary at first. But then I used these thoughts, and I kind of saw that there were some smoke and mirrors with that. And I was like, well, that's kind of garbage that only works for a few people. With NLP, how do we use this to our advantage and not be consistently let down when maybe it doesn't quite shield us as well as it should, or we hope it does?
I say that usually disappointment is from a result of unrealistic expectations.
Okay.
And a word that you said there, shield us. I think expecting it to shield you is a fairly unrealistic expectation, especially as you're building the muscle, or especially as you're starting out, right? It doesn't shield you, it doesn't create a wall or a barrier from pain or from disappointment that is now, it doesn't block it. It's more building a muscle.
Okay.
So that you have the strength to push back on that weight. Right? It doesn't remove the obstacles from coming. It doesn't shield you from the disappointment. It's about strengthening you.
Okay. So little analogy here before I let you continue. Mm-hmm. It's not a shield as in a giant piece of metal that you can put in front of yourself. It's more like a bulletproof vest or a flak jacket. You still got shot, and it still hurts like crazy, but you're not dead. And I think that maybe is something that we can dispel of that, is that, again, it is not this wall that you can just put up and say, I'm going to be completely protected from that. No, it's something that prevents you from being destroyed, but it still can damage you. Okay. Absolutely. Please continue.
That's a great analogy, great metaphor. So when you think about the expectation, something that I'll talk about sometimes with my clients in this growth in gratitude, growth in mentality and mindset, very important. But I do say that there is a potential trap that people fall into, which I think can happen when they watch The Secret, which is not a bad thing to watch.
No, I love the book. I adore that book.
And if there's something that works, there's a reason why.
Yes.
And that's always my thing, is dig into why. What's the truth in there? Why does that work? Why does that work for some people? And if you can find the why of why that works for some people or sometimes and apply that to your situation, it's much more powerful than thinking that the tip or the trick will be the thing that works. There's a reason that it works. And if you can identify the reason and apply that to your situation, much more powerful. Now, going back to the expectations, I say sometimes threat or danger in this process is believing that there's taking on an expectation that you should always be happy now. And I say, remember that if you're thinking that the result is a constant feeling, feelings are fleeting. If you're always chasing a feeling, you're always going to be chasing something that's fleeting from you. You may catch it sometimes, but it's always fleeting. So an expectation of always feeling happy or always feeling joy. And if you get a no from a job, you don't need to beat yourself up over not feeling happy in that moment. It's not expected that you have overwhelming joy in that moment. But again, strengthening yourself, you feel it, you get hurt. You allow those feelings to process, but you know it's not going to kill you. And you know that you're going to be strengthened by that. I think about when I went to personal training and learned a little bit more about how the muscles tear before they strengthen. I thought, wow, what a powerful metaphor for life.
Right.
There has to be some micro tears before the strengthening. And the micro tears are actually what allows for the strengthening to happen. And if those tears don't happen, if you shield yourself, then you're not going to grow. You're not going to strengthen. And so with the attitude of gratitude and the secret and the power of your mindset, this is about strengthening you, not shielding you from the world around you. And the more you can focus on developing yourself, strengthening yourself for the bounce back, for getting back up after you've gotten pushed down, that is the focus and the goal. Thinking that happiness or feeling a certain way all the time is the goal will always leave you feeling disappointed.
Got it. And I think you touched on a great thing there of kind of the scar that gets left when you get pushed. I think that's really excellent. And sometimes people do sometimes dig scars, especially when it shows that you've grown and that you've been further along, which is just awesome. Okay. Another topic that is really close to this, Ariel, is that fear of failure. And as a job seeker who maybe hasn't had a lot of luck with our search, what can we do to bolster ourselves against this?
Failure speaking about the connotations and connections that we have with certain words and language, I think failure is one that can often have a very negative connotation for us. So reframing how you see the failure as you say it, or not getting the job, or having a letdown, reframing it from a failure to a learning experience. And when you talked about, some of the messaging, there's probably some people who are listening making an eye roll saying, yeah, I've heard that before. Every failure is a learning experience. Sounds nice, but doesn't take away the emotion, right?
Of course not. No.
But embracing that as a step in the journey. So I think about how life is a journey and it's not linear. And when we tell ourselves that we should be making a linear step, and if we're not getting that job or we're not making that step, then we're failing, that's under the belief that it's linear, but life is not linear. So I think, again, reframing your expectations and not putting all of your hope in one role or one job opportunity, because the stories that you tell yourself as a result of experience can be very positive or very negative, and that impacts how you show up the next time, right?
Got it.
So if you see it as a failure, as not getting the job or something as a failure, I would reframe that as a learning experience, because then it's, what can I take from this to apply to the next? And I've seen it time and time again where someone is so grateful that they ended up not getting the job that they felt so disappointed about not getting it at the time, because they got the job that was a better suit, or they found out more about that company or that manager and they're glad they're not working for that person. And there's a lot of benefits that they can see long after that experience, but you can't see it when you're in it because you're just thinking, I failed. So reframing it from a failure to a learning experience and thinking, what can I learn? That's, again, where you make it about strengthening yourself and putting on more armor and more strength for the next time, for the next opportunity, versus just experiencing it as a loss.
Got it. So then, experiencing things as a loss, the question I have then, is failure okay?
Absolutely. I think it's perhaps an overused reference, but think about how many times a young child falls before they finally learn to walk. And there's no shame in that. There's no disappointment every time a child falls. There's no, oh, they should have figured this out already. That's an embraced part of the process. We know that they have to learn what works and what doesn't and how to balance. And they have to grow those muscles, literally grow those muscles by keep trying in order to then be able to walk and eventually run. And yet, as we grow older, we somehow think that no longer applies, even though we were humans then, we're humans now. But failure is the only way that you learn. It's the only way that you grow. It's the only way that you strengthen. And if you view failure as a stagnant thing that happens and you're just stuck there, there's no opportunity. There's no gift in that. But if you view failure as something that is a part of the process, something that you learn from and a required part of the strengthening process, then every time you fail, you know that there's good coming from it. You know that you're strengthening from it. You know that you're growing from that. And that's a very different interpretation of failure. And the external factors can be the same, but your interpretation of what it means changes. So seeing failure as a stagnant, static place where you're stuck versus failure as a part of the growth and strengthening journey can completely shift it from a negative to a positive.
Excellent. Wow. Okay. So again, folks, it is okay. Fail forward, lean into the failure almost.
And speaking of the reference or the connection that can mean, one analogy that we talked about, Rob, was the baseball, right? Reframing the meeting. In baseball, what is a good batting average in baseball?
Somewhere close to 300, 293, 311, something like that.
And when you hear batting 300, what's your immediate response, mental and emotional response?
That guy's doing all right. I mean, he's really probably one of the top 10, 20% of the people playing the game.
Now, if I said that guy is batting 27%, what's your response?
That guy only hits 1 in 4 pitches thrown his way? Come on.
But if I said, 270, he's batting 270, what's your response?
Well, that's great. That means he hits 270 out of every 1,000 balls he's thrown. That's a lot of balls.
And it means the exact same thing. But what words you choose and how you say it changes the response. So that's a reframing from 27% doesn't sound so good, so we say he's batting 270. That sounds good. And it actually creates a different mental and emotional response. That's the same concept applied, is how are you framing your quote-unquote failures and your successes? How are you framing them? Because it makes an impact on how you view it.
Excellent. Well, I think that, again, a couple of really great analogies there that kind of tie everything together for everybody. Couple closing kind of questions here, Ariel. There's this one I've really wanted to get to. This is one of the questions I've been waiting to ask you this entire time. There are job descriptions out there that are looking for the perfect candidate. In fact, the gentleman who guested on this show previous to your episode airing mentioned, try to become the perfect candidate. But there's an argument to be had on whether that person actually exists or not. There are so many talented job hunters out there, but companies are giving them false hope to some extent with their job search, I feel. How are they doing that? And I guess, why are they doing that?
Well, I think this applies to not only job searching, but searching for anything in life. If you don't ask for what you want, if you don't even know how to clarify what you want, you won't find it. This applies so much to marketing, to relationships, to all kinds of things in life, jobs as well. And this is not only the one looking for a job, but also the ones who are looking for a recruit. If you spell out exactly what you want, your ideal candidate, and that's, again, marketing as well as job searching, if you list out your ideal candidate, you're more likely to find that person. Think about it if those who were recruiting just said, we're just looking for somebody who's looking for a job. They're going to get all kinds of the spectrum. So ask for what you want. But then there's also an understanding and acceptance of clarity that you're going to ask for what you want, but you're not going to get everything. Meaning, I think about it from, this is going to be a silly sounding reference, but think about someone who is looking for their life partner, and they're